Hi everyone, my name's Mark Gaddis. I'm the Digital Marketing Manager at AbilityNet, and I'm the host for this webinar, which is on smartphone features for people with hearing loss. So thank you for joining us. Also with me today, I have Alex Barker, who's the Advice and Information Officer here at AbilityNet. And we also are really pleased to have joining us from Action on Hearing Loss, Kevin Taylor, who's their product technologist. Today's webinar, as I said, is about smartphone features for people with hearing loss. We're going to tell you about some of the support available from AbilityNet and Action on Hearing Loss. We're going to go through some changes that you can make and settings that are readily available in everyday technology that will allow people with hearing loss to achieve their goals with the use of technology. And then at the end of this webinar, we also have a question and answer session. For those that are new to webinars and new to the Zoom software, there are a few features available for you to interact with us. So there's a chat function. So if you want to have conversation, if you want to ask us a question, if you're having technical difficulties maybe, please feel free to use the chat function, and as host, I'll make sure that I'm responding to those messages as much as possible. We also have a Q&A function. So on the panel, for those attending via a desktop device, there is a Q&A function. So if you have any questions that you do want to ask the people on this webinar, please do use that function. And as I say, there's a Q&A session at the end of the webinar where we'll make sure we respond to you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to test the functioning of the webinar. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to launch a poll. So I'm going to ask Alex just to move to the next slide. So we're just going to do a quick poll. So we want to find out who's attending this webinar and who you're attending this webinar on behalf of. And we also want to find out whether people are aware of the accessibility features in their smartphone that help people with hearing loss. Now, depending on what device you're on and depending on how you're joining us, you may not see the poll. But for those that have joined us, up on the screen, if you've joined and you can see this, the first question is, who are you attending this webinar on behalf of? So are you attending on behalf of yourself? Maybe it's a friend, maybe it's a relative, someone you support through paid work, someone you support through voluntary work, or your organisation, or perhaps you prefer not to say. So if you could respond to that question, if you can see the question up on screen. And then also, are you aware of the accessibility features in your smartphone that help people with hearing loss? Just for us to get a sense of how many people are on this call maybe already know of some of the features and are looking to confirm their knowledge. So I can see we've got 76% of people have voted, so that's really positive. 77 have come through now. So I am going to end the poll now, and I'm just going to share some of the results with you. So who are you attending this webinar on behalf of? 32% of people are attending it for themselves. So for those people attending it for yourselves, we really hope that you'll gain real practical benefit from this webinar. We've got some people attending for a relative, that's 3% of people. 1% of someone I support through paid work. 6% someone I support through voluntary work, but the majority at 58% is people attending on behalf of their organisation. So that's really interesting to hear. Maybe if you're willing to, we'd really be interested if you wanted to comment in the chat box what your organisation is, just so we can get a sense of where you're from. And then in terms of, are you aware of the accessibility features in your smartphone that help people with hearing loss? 24% have said yes. 53% have said no, and 24% have said I'm not sure. So there's a big portion of you there, about over 75%, where again you're going to gain some real useful knowledge on this webinar. So I'm going to stop sharing now. I'm going to ask Alex to move on to the next slide, and this is where I'm going to hand over to Kevin Taylor, who's just going to start us off with some statistics about hearing loss.
Okay, hello. Well, here's some statistics related to hearing loss in the UK. There are 11 million people with hearing loss in the UK. That's around 1 in 6 of the population. By 2035, it's estimated 1 in 5 of us will have some hearing loss. An estimated 900,000 people in the UK have severe or profound hearing loss, and there are 50,000 children with hearing loss, around half of which are born with hearing loss, while the other half lose their hearing during childhood. We estimate there's also at least 24,000 people across the UK who use sign language as their main language, but there could be more than that than we don't know about. Okay, next slide.
Yeah, so that's great. Great, Kevin. Thanks for sharing that. I think it's really interesting as well. AbilityNet is pan-disability, which means that we work with people of all disabilities. And I think for myself particularly, that was quite interesting to see, the prevalence of people with hearing loss. So thanks for sharing those statistics. And yeah, Alex, over to you.
And thanks, Mark. So, I would find that statistic quite interesting too. So that's 11 million people. So that's about the population of London that's got a hearing loss. And I think that's really interesting and puts it into some context. So, I'm Alex. I'm the Advice and Information Officer for AbilityNet. I worked here for over 15 years. And these are some of the things that AbilityNet can provide. So we've got a range of different fact sheets, including one on hearing loss that's been written in conjunction with Action on Hearing Loss. We've got a range of webinars. We've got a really good section on our website called My Computer My Way, which talks about how to customize your computer for your particular needs. And it also talks about customizing your iPhone and also customizing your Android tablet as well. We've got some useful links. We also have a load of digital accessibility resources, so we're very keen on trying to make websites as accessible for everyone. And we also do workplace adjustments. One of the things that isn't listed on that slide is that we also have a network of over 280 IT can help volunteers. So if you ever get into a situation where your technology isn't working in the way that you want it to, you can always drop us an email or give us a call, or get someone to contact us on your behalf, and we can arrange for a volunteer to come out within 5 to 10 working days. And we've got volunteers in most parts of the UK.
Great, and over to you, Kevin. You were going to tell us a bit about the support that Action on Hearing Loss offers.
Yeah, well, we have a range of product and technology leaflets and fact sheets, including using mobiles and smartphones when you have hearing loss, communicating online, and assistive technology. Are you making the most of it? That you can download from our website. We cover various technology issues in our membership magazine, and we offer a range of products, including amplified phones, from our online shop. We also have a number of resource centres around the country where people can book an appointment and come in and try out products and equipment. And we also provide a hearing loop installation service, and we provide advice on the use of equipment for access to work. We provide communication support, such as sign language interpreters and speech-to-text reporters. And you can find out more about this from our website at actiononhearingloss.org.uk. Next slide.
That's great. Thanks, Kevin. So now we're heading into the kind of smartphone feature section of the webinar. So what we're going to do here is Alex is just going to give you some information about the accessibility settings that are readily available in most major smartphones. So over to you, Alex.
Thanks, Mark. So a lot of people don't know that there's a wealth of technology built into smartphones now. So, for example, the two screenshots on this page are both from an iPhone that we had in the office, and it's under the accessibility section from the settings tab, and it talks about hearing aids, LED flash for alerts, mono audio, and phone noise cancellation. And all of these might be quite useful to people that have got hearing loss. So, for example, let's take the LED flash for alerts. Sometimes the iPhone will perform a function and it will flash, the screen will flash to let you know what's going on. But, sorry, I'll start that again. And sometimes the iPhone will beep or make a noise to tell you what's going on. If you can't hear that noise, you're at a disadvantage. But what you can do is you can turn on the LED flash for alerts. So when you get an alert, say for example you get an email in and normally you get a nice little tingling noise. When you get an email in, it will actually flash the screen and tell you what is actually happening. So that's a really, really useful piece of technology. So my wife has an iPhone and it's always making lots of notification noises. If she was hearing impaired, she wouldn't know whether someone was sending a message via WhatsApp or an email. So having the LED light on the screen and on the phone flashing is going to make things a lot easier. Now, for a lot of people that have got hearing loss, they find it really difficult to cope with sounds that go into both or that are stereo. So what you can do is you can configure your phone just to provide mono audio, and for some people it enables them to hear it more effectively. The last one is phone noise cancellation. So everyone knows that if you're using a phone in a certain environment, it can be really, really noisy and really difficult to hear. What you can do is you can switch the phone noise cancellation on, and it works on the basis or the same idea that you've got noise cancelling headsets. It will electronically filter out some of the background noise so you're able to hear people more effectively. And also, what you can do is you can adjust the balance on your iPhone. So, for example, if you've got more hearing in your left-hand side than your right-hand side, you can actually move the slider to one side or the other to improve the sound quality. We're just going to go on to the next slide. Now, these just wanted to show you a bit more about the inbuilt accessibility. The two screenshots to the left-hand side are actually from an Android phone. So I've got a Samsung Galaxy A6, and I was really interested to see what accessibility features the Android had. And of course, yeah, you've got your flash notification, so it'll flash the screen when an email comes in. You can also adjust or switch on mono audio, and it's the same as an iPhone. Going back to the iPhone here, right at the bottom of screenshot number 3, you've got subtitles and captioning, and Apple go out of their way to say that if you're watching particular pieces of video material, you can get them subtitled and captioned. So that's going to be really, really useful for an awful lot of people. The screenshot on the far right, I think is quite nice. It's only available on the really new Samsung Galaxy, so we're talking of the S9. And basically, if you've got a new baby, you can actually turn the device on, and if you're in another room, the device will actually listen and notify you if your baby is starting to cry. And I just think that's a really nice example of how technology can work. And I don't have a baby, so I can't vouch for its usefulness, but I think it's a really nice idea, and it's going to help you as a as a new parent. I'm sure it would.
No, absolutely, Alex. And you can imagine that, and as you say, a new parent has come along, and the reason that that's been created is for that very reason. So I'm sure there's a very personal story behind why the baby monitor feature was created. So yeah, thanks for sharing some of those accessibility settings, Alex, and talking us through them. We really hope everyone on this phone, maybe whilst you're on the webinar, just grab your smartphone if it's nearby and see what accessibility settings you have on your own iPhone, if you aren't already using them. I think what we're going to do now is, if we go to the next slide, we're going to hand over to Kevin, who's going. Oh, Alex, did you want to talk a bit about live transcribe first? Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. So. Google, we were going to do a demonstration of live transcribe, but unfortunately we couldn't get the video to work. I would suggest that when you've got a minute, go onto YouTube and Google live transcribe and Google. There is a guy called Dimitri who's a software engineer who has helped design this piece of software for Google, which will actually listen to what someone says and it will print it out on the screen. So for an example would be if you go into your local coffee shop and you ask for a cup of black coffee and a piece of cake, and they say to you, do you want milk and sugar in it? If you hold the phone up to them, or even just down by the side, you'll be able to see what the assistant at the coffee shop is actually saying to you. So, for example, if you've got mild or moderate hearing loss, or even total hearing loss, that would be really useful because you can actually go and have a conversation with someone and you can understand what's being said. Now, one thing to say is you do need to have a network connection. Unfortunately, I've used all my data up this month, so I couldn't actually demonstrate it to you while I was talking to you. But it's a really nice piece of software, and I've actually demonstrated it at an event for the Sense charity, and they were all blown away. And the best thing is, it's totally free of charge, and I think that's a real boon to a lot of people that have got hearing loss.
No, that's great, and sorry to hear about your data, Alex. So yeah, thanks for that, Alex. And again, as you've highlighted, Alex, that's a free app.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, regardless of whether you're joining us with as a person with hearing loss or not, do download that and have a go. And I think we're now going to move on, aren't we, Alex? And we're going to hand over to Kevin, who's going to start off by talking to us about hearing aid compatibility ratings.
Yes, it's quite a few mainstream smartphones are what's called hearing aid compatible. what that means is that they work with hearing aids or cochlear implants, have a hearing loop setting, also known as a T setting. The result is clearer calls through the hearing aid and without or with reduced interference, a sort of buzzing sound that some hearing aids pick up that is generated by the electronics inside the phone and its display. So many smartphones actually have a hearing aid compatibility rating, which is based on a US standard. Phones that work best with hearing aids and cochlear implants have a T3 or T4 rating. And you can see there on the slide that the iPhone 8 and the iPhone 8 Plus all have a T4 rating. Whilst it's likely that a phone with a T3 or T4 rating will work well with a hearing aid, there is no absolute guarantee, because there is some variability between hearing aids' ability to reject electrical interference. So really, it's always, ideally, it's best to try the phone with the hearing aid or cochlear implant before purchasing it. Next slide, please. Phones that are hearing aid compatible sometimes have this symbol or something similar on the packaging. And if you're not sure if your hearing aid has a hearing loop setting, or whether it's been enabled, we suggest that you check that out with your audiologist, because they might be able to advise you on whether your hearing aid loop setting is enabled on your hearing aid. Sometimes it isn't. So examples of hearing aid compatible smartphones, or we've seen the iPhones. There's the Samsung S10, the S9, and the S8. They're all hearing aid compatible. And actually, there's a very useful online resource called the Gary database. GARI stands for Global Accessibility Reporting Initiative, and it's a handy free online tool that lists accessibility features for mainstream smartphones. So you can search phones for dexterity, vision, hearing loss, speech loss, and cognition for over 20 mainstream brands. If you go to the GARI database, GARI website, that is gari.info, so GARI.info, and you can log on to the GARI database, and you can search for the accessibility functions on mainstream smartphones. It's particularly useful if you're thinking about getting a new smartphone and you want to know what accessibility features that it has, or if you have an existing smartphone and you're not sure what accessibility features it has, you can check it out on the GARI database. Next slide, please. So amplified smartphones, in addition to mainstream smartphones, there are also a number of amplified smartphones, especially for people with hearing loss and older adults. Like mainstream smartphones, they are hearing aid compatible, but they also have a number of other accessibility features. They provide a louder volume level through the handset compared to a mainstream smartphone, and they often have a separate handset volume boost button, and that's particularly useful for people without hearing aids that have mild to moderate hearing loss. So they'll have a louder ringer and are generally easier to set up and use. Generally, they have an assistance or SOS button, so activating that sends out an alert SMS or a phone call to one or more relatives or friends when you need assistance. Other features may include easier to use interface or operating system, predictive text, adjustable font size, and Bluetooth. So main brands of amplified smartphones are Doro and Amplicoms, and the Doro 35 and the Doro 8040 and the Amplicoms PowerTel M9500. You can find out they're all amplified phones, and you can amplified smartphones, And you can find out more details about those by going to the Action on Hearing Loss website and looking at our web shop. Next slide, please. So another way that smartphones can be used with hearing aids is with Bluetooth. So increasingly, smartphones and tablets work directly with the latest hearing aids and cochlear implants through Bluetooth, either through a streamer or directly. And generally, this works really well. For example, the cochlear phone clip, which is a type of audio streaming accessory device, in effect works like a Bluetooth headset, but instead links to the cochlear implant. And it allows hands-free operation while on a call, provides improved call quality, and allows music streaming from the smartphone to the cochlear implant. Which also brings me on to so-called made-for-iPhone hearing aids. Now these help you to hear your iPhone, iPad, or iPad Touch more clearly through a hearing aid, and work directly with iOS 7 devices or later without the need for any type of streamer. Apple actually publish accessibility features of all their devices, which includes a list of all compatible made-for-iPhone hearing aids. So if you go to apple.com/UK/accessibility/iPhone, you can find out more details. Yeah, so the next slide, please.
So that's great. Thanks, Kevin. That was really interesting. Particularly liked hearing about the kind of developments around the Bluetooth connectivity. And actually, we've got questions coming in, so I'll make sure that there's time to get around to those. But what we want to do before we go on to questions is just launch another poll. So again, depending on how you're joining us, you may not see something on screen, but I'm just going to launch a poll now just to ask, before this webinar, did you know some hearing aids can connect to Bluetooth compatible smartphones? I think it's really interesting, you know, with modern technology, a lot of this is built in, a lot of this isn't necessarily new technology, it's just how we're using it. So I'm just going to let people vote. Really interestingly, and I'm going to close the poll now, I think, so that we can get some questions to the presenters in. So we've had 75% people vote, and actually, interestingly, 43% of you were aware of Bluetooth compatible smartphones. So that's really interesting, and obviously then 57% said no. So that is interesting. Actually, a lot of people were aware of that. So that's really interesting. That's also a bit of feedback for us, just to know that, you know, there's a lot of you already out there that were aware of that. The connectivity there. So maybe there's something you want to know more about. So this is an opportunity now, because obviously with the remaining 15 minutes, we are going to do a question and answer session. So there are a few questions that have been coming in already. If you have your own question you want to ask, there is the Q&A function, which is on the panel, if you're joining us on a desktop device. And I'm going to start asking the questions now to Alex and Kevin. So one that I've just seen come straight in was just from Tim, and he's just asking, what is a streamer? So that was in relation just to what you were just speaking about, Kevin. Are you able to give some context to that?
Yes, well, in terms of linking a hearing aid to another device via Bluetooth, some devices can't link directly via Bluetooth. They have to go via a streaming device. It's an intermediary device that links the smartphone to the Bluetooth device. But increasingly now we're seeing made for iPhone aids and also made for all hearing aids that don't actually need an intermediary streaming device. So it's just a way of linking the hearing aid to another Bluetooth device, but you have to just go via a streamer. But technology is moving on now, and so we're starting to see hearing aids that link directly via Bluetooth without the need for a streamer.
Brilliant. Yeah, thanks, Kevin. I've had a few comments and questions come in about live transcribe, Alex.
Okay.
So there's a few interesting ones here, so I'm going to read them out to you, and then just let me know if you want to make any comment on that.
Sure.
So George has just commented, an improved version of Live Transcribe will be available on the next version of Android, Q in quotes, and will not require data as it will be calculated on device. So
Okay.
that's really interesting. So the fact that you're commenting about your poor data and how you're using up all your data on Live Transcribe suggests that you're aware there's a new version.
Okay.
At the same time, I do have Joe's commented about she has a deaf customer that uses Speak on her iPhone to do a similar instant text version of someone's speak. So like an alternative.
Yep.
I'd imagine that's almost like it's a low-tech version. You can just pull up the text on your screen and pass it over to the person. So that was just really interesting.
Yeah.
I'm going to now look to another question I can ask. Kevin, I think this one's probably for you. What does the M rating refer to in the hearing aid compatibility ratings?
Right, the M rating is actually about how the hearing aid performs when you've got it on the microphone setting with a smartphone or another type of phone. So the T rating is around how the hearing aid performs on the hearing loop setting. But actually, some people, what they do is they leave the hearing aid on the M setting, the microphone setting, and just use it near the phone. But what used to happen is that the hearing aid would also pick up interference on the M setting as well. So what they decided to do was to do a T rating and an M rating. So the M rating is really around when you're using the hearing aid on the M setting and you're using a phone.
Great. Thanks, Kevin. Alex, I'm going to go back to you.
Mm-hmm.
I think you'll be able to answer this one. Do any smartphones offer a speech-to-text function?
So, and a lot of smartphones now have the ability to cope with speech to text. So, for example, if you're looking at making notes, you can actually talk to your Apple device using Siri, or you can actually make a note on an Android phone. So yes, you've got basic text to speech to text on one of those. And if you're looking at doing more advanced things, you can get Dragon Anywhere for your iPad and your iPhone. And basically, it's a cut down version of Dragon Naturally Speaking or Nuance Naturally Speaking, and it will allow you to transcribe documents, notes, and emails, and so on.
Great, thanks, Alex. I've got another one for you, Alex.
Okay.
Somebody's just asking, what about features on Windows phones?
Okay, so to be honest, we haven't really touched Windows phones because there aren't that many Windows phones available. But what you can do is on the same way that you've got accessibility features set up in Windows, you've got accessibility features set up on Windows phones, and basically you can actually have Sound Sentry turned on, where you can get the screen to change when you get notifications. And the other thing that you can also do is you can also, on some Windows phones, you can actually change the way that the sound is, so you can have mono and stereo sounds like on the other devices. To be honest, the device information line doesn't get many, if any, calls about Windows phones. I think they were a great idea, but I think people suddenly lost interest in them because both the Android and the Apple phones seem to have a bit more functionality, in terms of their ease of access features than the Windows phones have.
Great. Thanks, Alex. Kevin, I've got one for you. Let us know if you're able to respond on the webinar. But somebody's asking if we could explain Tcoil coupling with regards to hearing aids. Is that something?
Yeah, the Tcoil, that actually is what I was talking about earlier, hearing aid compatibility. The Tcoil is actually inside the hearing aid, and it picks up the signal from hearing loops and hearing aid compatible phones.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks for the clarification. I've got some other questions here, and I might ask you, Kevin and Alex, one or two more. Some of them are very, very specific. So what I might do is I might just say, if you have asked a very specific question, the next slide that we will go on to is just about contact information. So Alex, I don't suppose you mind going on to that slide now?
I certainly don't.
Because what we'll do is, and it's one more slide, Alex.
Yeah.
So what I'll do is there is contact information up on screen, which I will come to in just a second. But just for context, I know somebody's asked about specific recommendations for someone who's both autistic and deaf. And I think that's probably, Alex, is that the kind of thing that you would feel confident with, somebody emailing us about to get that kind of information?
Yes, and I'm sure that we can deal with it, but a bit of context would be really, really useful. So if you could drop us an email, I can get back to you by the end of this week. It sounds like it's a question that I probably couldn't give a quick, 2-sentence answer to, but if you care to drop us an email, we'll go away and do some research.
Yeah, that's great, Alex. Thanks for confirming that. Because I think, as I say, we're getting a lot of very, very specific questions coming in now. So I think what I'm going to do, just looking at the time, is I am just going to say thank you to Alex and Kevin for joining us on this webinar and obviously talking to us about smartphone features for hearing loss. So thank you both. I do want to mention My Clear Text. So there's a lady called Judith. So if you've wondered what the rolling captions are at the bottom of the screen, that is supplied by My Clear Text. And it's a way of us showing our commitment to making our webinars as accessible as possible. So thank you, Judith, for joining us today and providing that service. There's lots of information available. There was lots of questions asked that I'm not going to go back to about similar apps to Live Transcribe for other operating systems, noise cancellation features. If a person's ringing you, do you need this turned on? Lots of great questions that are coming through that we unfortunately haven't got around to answering on the webinar. But I want to highlight that there is support available. So AbilityNet has an advice and information line. Alex is one of the people that mans that. So you can call us on 0800 269 545 during UK office hours. You can also email us at inquiries@abilitynet.org.uk. And then earlier in the webinar, Alex touched on the free resources that we have available, including fact sheets, webinars, etc. So to find those, visit our website, abilitynet.org.uk/expert-resources. Or if you have a particular technology problem that you need our support with, whether that be remote support or having one of our volunteers visit you in the comfort of your own home, if you go to abilitynet.org.uk/request-IT-support, you can use a form on our website, you can email us, or you can call us to request that support. And as Alex has commented, if you can just give us a bit of context to what the difficulty you're having is and what the technology you're using is, that's always appreciated. And then, of course, there's also support available from Action on Hearing Loss. So again, earlier in the webinar, Kevin highlighted some of the support available and directed people towards the Action on Hearing Loss website. Action on Hearing Loss also have their own telephone number. That is 0808 808 0123. You can also email information@hearingloss.org.uk. And they also have text phone, which is 0808 808 9000, and SMS, which is 07800 000 360. So just reading that out for the benefit of anyone that's visiting with visual impairment. And I'm going to just once again say thank you to Alex, thank you to Kevin,
Okay.
thank you to Judith from My Clear Text, and also very importantly, thank you for everyone that's attended. We hope you've learned something, and we really look forward to meeting you on our next webinar, which we will update you on. So thank you. There is an after webinar survey, so if you have any feedback to give us, if you have any comments you want to share, or any ideas about what you want to see in our next webinar, please do complete that survey. And yeah, we look forward to meeting you again soon. Great. Thanks everyone.
Bye.
Bye then. Bye.
Bye.